Okay, part 17 then. So, the decades-long standoff resurfaced with Iran and Israel. People have been asking me what I think about this latest round. Well, my position hasn't changed really since last year. Watch part 11. It's all in there really. It seems undeniable to me at the very least that certain parts of this book are being fulfilled. The question really is, by whom? By the great creator of everything? Or is it someone else entirely? But there is definitely an interesting as above so below ring to all of this. Saturn and Neptune conjunct at the moment, while Iran are in the crosshairs. Saturn and Neptune were conjunct in 1953, when Iran again were in the crosshairs. Operation Ajax, the overthrow of the Iranian Prime Minister at the time. If we put up a side-by-side of our current era with the 1953 astro config, these two charts see Pluto and the conjunction in opposing signs. But the question must really be asked now, I think. If this prophecy came true, as you can see in part 15 of this series, does it mean this one has to also? Do the words in this book have to be fulfilled? If you believe they do, how far down the narrative are you willing to venture before you ask yourself, are these events really of a divine nature? Or are they something else entirely? Are you waiting for the new world, the new Jerusalem? Is a new world okay with you as long as it's the one ordered from this book? There sure are a lot of big folks queuing up for heaven tickets at this booth lately, waiting for this guy. But doesn't this guy have to show up first? Are they all going to trust the plan and let what needs to happen just happen? How much end of the world anticipation does it take to actually will the end of the world into happening? Was there a divine hand that left its fingerprints on this whole thing? On June 13th, 6:13, is the great creator really showing us a number? Is the supreme being really a numerologist? In the last episode, I said to look out for the 77th anniversary of a certain state, which would happen 401 days after the Aleph Tav eclipse, which saw this very famous ascension of DT in his campaign video. April 8th, 2024, the gematria of Aleph and Tav being 401, the number 401 being related to the biblical Esau, which DT has been compared to by Israeli media. Now, on the day itself, the 14th of May, 2025, 401 days after the Aleph Tav eclipse, the big story in the news was about how DT had been gifted an aeroplane by the Qataris, which was universally valued at $400 million and considered as a potential replacement for Air Force One. So, 401, just a coincidence. Now the jet itself was said to be a 747-8. I'd never heard of that series before, and it struck me as odd because I'd seen the headlines that referred to the aircraft as a palace in the sky, like a Merkaba, also a symbolic flying vehicle. Geometrically, a Merkaba looks like this, but symbolically speaking, it is a chariot, a sky chariot at that. A geometric Merkaba has 7 points in 2 dimensions, but 8 in 3 dimensions. 7 and 8, like the model of the plane given to DT, a Boeing 747-8, a palace in the sky, a Merkaba. The word Merkaba itself means divine chariot and has a root source in Egyptian, Marakabut, with some familiar gematria. Does this aircraft, gifted to DT, have some kind of Kabbalistic significance, symbolically placing DT inside his mystical Merkaba? We know DT likes his Kabbalah, and with the Palace in the Sky story being big in the news, 401 days after DT was infamously depicted as symbolically ascending to the heavens in this campaign video, I mean, this all really does have some amazing resonance. 401 gives us 88 in the reduction. Now the plane apparently was gifted to DT on the 11th of May. This was a year to the day that a certain state tweeted the words, "We will dance again." It hasn't been confirmed that this was in direct reference to this event and the dancers on that day, but more plane resonance. Are we going to need to keep an eye on aircraft again then? This one in particular, maybe.
Apparently that was another plane.
Continuing the Isran or Irael theme, a story went around the socials Tuesday 17th of June regarding this chap, an Israeli ambassador, and his comments in this video.
Number of surprises. When the dust settles, you're going to see some surprises on Thursday night and Friday that will make the beeper operation almost seem simple.
A few news outlets took all that to mean that big surprises were on their way on Thursday the 19th and Friday 20th of June regarding the latest conflict. But the ambassador himself walked back this statement, saying that he actually meant that surprises would become evident regarding the beginning of the latest conflict, which started back on 6/13. At the making of this video, there doesn't seem to have been anything of major significance on those dates specifically, but because of his comments, which he says were taken out of context, the internet pointed to a controversial biblical passage in the book of Esther. That biblical verse contains two dates. The first is 23 Sivan, which was Thursday, June 19th, one of the dates anticipated for those big surprises. In this biblical passage, which surfaced on the socials because of this story, particular orders are given to a certain people. I've redacted it here to prevent further censorship. But in this passage, orders are written up on this date. The orders are seen as permission that basically allow for all sorts of things to be carried out in the name of self-defense. And what were we told happened on this date? DT announced that he was going to think about the next step in the conflict and if the USA will get directly involved. Is DT again resonating biblically here, divinely fulfilling the role of Mordecai on the date in this Bible passage, as though echoing this Bible passage, symbolically summoning his own royal secretaries to draw up the big plan? Was another biblical character being divinely reflected in real life, or is it something else entirely?
God, I want to just say, we love you, God.
Now, back in part 13, I featured this clip of someone saying that the so-called near miss was evidence that DT had been chosen by the great creator, who, in all his unending glory, was invoking this passage from Exodus, when someone has their ear pierced to show lifelong loyalty. It's a passage from Exodus 21:6, same date as when the USA struck Iran. And at the summer solstice, the peak date of the sun assigned to Esau, of course, which DT has been compared to many times. And speaking of the sun, there has been a lot of conjecture about the name of this operation. Some say perhaps the lion is indicative of Leo the lion, ruled by the sun. The operation was officially announced just one day before DT's own 79th solar return. DT, of course, has Leo rising and has been featured with lions in his own social media posts. Others say this is the lion that is being referred to, the lion of this tribe of Judah. This seems like the best fit. In Genesis 49, we see Jacob's blessing. Judah is a lion's whelp. From the prey, my son, you have gone up. As in, rising, Operation Rising Lion. This verse is part of Jacob's blessing, when Jacob, brother of Esau, in his final moments gives his blessings to his 12 sons. And the latest conflict was called the 12-Day War. We are informed that this verse has a parallel. Numbers 23:24. The people rise like a lioness. They rouse themselves like a lion that does not rest till it devours its prey and drinks the blood of its victims. And this verse, on the 12th of June, the day before the 12 days began, was placed upon the Western Wall in a prayer note by the PM of a certain state. And as we have been led to believe so many times by the good old trustworthy news sources, Iran have a big urge to unalive DT. They will of course have so much more reason to want to do that now. And if we remember, back in May, this story came out about an unaliving list from that country, with DT as their top target. Now, when I first saw this article back in May, I just had this weird feeling that if I did a bit of the 88 detail on it, there would be some kind of direct hit. And indeed there was. 88 days from the date of this article gives us August 3rd, which in the Hebrew calendar is this very significant date. It commemorates the destruction of two very famous temples, gives us a very resonant number in the Latin. And speaking of Latin, in the last episode we charted the passing of the Popester at the age of 88. Then on May the 8th, Pope Leo was chosen as his replacement. This was a direct sync to that last episode, when I featured the Pope and Mars in Leo in that second section. But the interesting thing for me was that, having talked a lot about Mars in part 16, when the new Pope was announced, Mars was at Leo, at 9 degrees 11 minutes. Can't help but think we have another big day like this one round the corner. Hope I'm wrong.
White smoke billowing out.
A bit more on the Mesoamerican calendar here, and its resonance with the May 14th, 77th anniversary this year. As mentioned, Zolkeen-wise, it was a 7 deer, the 7th sign in the Zolkeen. So a 77th anniversary, a 7th tone of a 7th sign, and another 77. The sign for deer is referred to almost directly in the film Leave the World Behind, when the male character says the deer seen by he and his wife through the window are good luck in Mesoamerican culture. One of the reasons deer is considered lucky in the Zolkeen is because of the symbol of the sign, a thumb and forefinger in a grasp, which can mean to receive, like receiving a gift. The plane that DT received, a 747 plane, was indeed a gift. And this symbol for deer in the Mesoamerican Zolkeen, the clasped thumb and forefinger, is in a receiving grasp, and undeniably a gesture used repeatedly by the Trumpster. If we go back to this controversial biblical passage from earlier, the second date in this passage converts to the 2nd of March 2026. That in the Zolkeen is 13 storm. This is on the deer time wave. So 1 deer ending in 13 storm. 13 storm is the 2nd of March, but 13 days prior, the 18th of Feb, is 1 deer. Now, as well as that date being a 1 deer in the Zolkeen, it also corresponds to 1 Adar, the month of the tribe Naphtali, represented by a deer. 1 deer in the Zolkeen, corresponding to 1 Adar in the Hebrew calendar. Both days with the same symbolism. This is beyond coincidence for me. What with the film being released 333 days before the second coming of DT, and 333 days after the discovery of the comet that would later be hailed as the Star of Jacob, this movie marked the exact halfway point of a period of 666 days between when Comet A3 was discovered and DT's second coming selection date. And with the movie featuring a blood moon from the perspective of the moon, which we were then told happened in real life on Purim, on the very next blood moon after the movie came out. I can't help thinking there is some significance to this coming period. Not only all that, during this day also Saturn and Neptune will be conjunct on the 0 degree line of Aries at that time, the beginning of the traditional zodiac wheel. And remember, these are all just observations. It doesn't necessarily mean something is going to happen, but it could do. We'll have to wait and see. With that said, we'll leave it there for now, and I'll see you in the next episode.